So welcome to this Cool Care webinar with Autumna. I'd like to welcome Debbie, but she's not quite here yet. I'm assuming that you're probably eating your lunch and or may well be interrupted. So we are automatically recording this session, and these slides will be automatically shared with all participants so that you can kind of see what we've been talking about. We've got 100 registered, and as far as I can see, we're kind of like filling up relatively quickly there, still going up. And yeah, so we'll just crack on with the presentation. So, hello, my name's Ian Corrigan. I'm the Commercial Director of Cool Care, and we are a care home administration system, helping make running your care home easier, more efficient, and more profitable. Part of that system is Enquiry management and a CRM, and hence that's why we've got a kind of an interest in this. In relation to Debbie, she's the founder of Autumna Limited, which is a listing site, a directory for care homes in the UK. So just wondering where Debbie is, but there you go. So thought I'd start with a little bit of market outlook and give you a kind of an overview of what's going on from our perspective. Now, Cool Care is actually part of the L&T group, and L&T has L&T care developments within it, who build new care homes, and they're actively building care homes between 20 and 25 new care homes per year. So it's about two a month. Brand new care homes to the market. So they've done an analysis that they've shared with us of how they see the general market going. And there really is a wave of the aging population is approaching. We refer to that as the baby boomer generation or boomer generation, of which it really is a boom. And that is creates a significant opportunity for growth and high quality operators. Our sort of wider group is committed to building care homes, new build care homes, quality high-end homes, aiming towards kind of increasing that as an overall sort of demographic of where you can potentially stay. And yet we see that as an important sort of aspect. Just notice we've got two participants who have raised their hands. Geraldine's still there. Kelly, did you have a question there?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm from Autumna.
Hello.
Hello. Debbie is asking what email address you have sent her the
sent
link
it through to debbie@autumna.co.uk.
Okay, I'll just feed back to her. She is having troubles there.
Yeah, she was invited on that as a panelist, so which is different from a normal.
Okay, thing. I'll go back to her and let her know. Apologies, right. She is desperately trying to get on.
Yeah. The joys of modern technology, which we're arguing is a good idea. So there is an increased life expectancy. So at 65, it's 18.5 years for males and 21 years for females. So time in the home is extending. So the length of residency is extending. The average care home stay for established residents is approximately 30 months. So that's overall is going up. There is a reduced capacity in stock within the UK. On average, 16 care homes are closed per month during 2021. So we definitely got a kind of an increase in demand and a decrease in ongoing sort of places to satisfy that demand. And from L&T's perspective, and you're willing to sort of take feedback from others on this, is that there is somewhat of a deficit of quality. There is aging stock within organisations' care homes. 37% of care homes stock was registered pre-1990, and only 29%, so less than a third, include wet room accommodation as standard. We, as a provider of care home administration systems, charge on a per bed basis, and we ask people about their registrations. It says you registered for a certain amount of beds, and it's quite frequently that the operator that we're speaking with will say, well, some of those are double rooms, some of those rooms are unsuitable. Actually, we're having to sort of refurbish and change. So there's a general kind of recognition that how the homes are configured at the moment is not necessarily how people want to have the home going forwards. En suite. If you personally, you wouldn't really be looking at hotels that didn't have an ensuite. You wouldn't sort of want to go down the corridor for toilets. But there are still care homes that don't have ensuite sort of rooms. So there is a general sort of desire to kind of move that forward and change that. So just see if Debbie's here. No, not yet. So that's what we consider from a market outlook. Now, what I might do is logically, we're going to talk about lead generation, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of once you've got that lead, how might you go about kind of keeping on top of that. As Debbie's not currently here, I'm going to reverse the slides if that's okay with everybody. It sort of makes sense. So I'm going to kind of go on to the next slide, and then hopefully Debbie will arrive at the end of that slide in order to talk through her lead generation sort of piece. So from CoolCare's perspective, and also from my own perspective, I'm effectively a salesperson, and I'm a sort of a team leader of salespeople. And I know that having a good customer relationship management system, a CRM system, is absolutely essential for me keeping on top of incoming inquiries for people wishing to purchase CoolCare. And that's no different for any operation. And of course, care homes are care facilities, but they are also businesses, and so therefore keeping on top of potential new residents is absolutely essential. So for us, and this is our sort of what's the benefits of a CRM, not necessarily CoolCare. Any CRM system is better than no CRM system. It does allow you to consistently sort of target your marketing strategy towards sort of your multiple channels. You can see by logging where the inquiry has come from, you can see where that inquiry is coming in, see what's working for you, see what's not working for you. I mean, deep down inside, we are ultimately looking at to try maximizing our private funders, and therefore, what is it that's sort of driving those private funders to come to you rather than somebody else? When they've come to you, are you treating that inquiry with the I suppose the care and diligence that you need to be treating it with? So having a sort of bespoke approach to each resident based on their preferences and circumstances is incredibly important. The call is a care call. That first call that you receive is possibly one of the worst calls that somebody has to make. They're actually looking at putting their loved one, their own mother, their grandmother, their father into care, and they're ringing up with a need to kind of like find out information and sort of move things forward. So that is very much a very important care call. And so capture of what you're finding out on that call is essential, because you don't want to then have to ask the questions again because you sort of wrote it down on a piece of paper, or it went on a book, but you don't have access to that book, or it's in notes or something like that. So it's absolutely essential that you capture as much information as you possibly can. Yeah, you can then look at your KPIs. You can sort of manage kind of how things are running. What's the average response time? When's the callbacks happening? How well are you getting on with those inquiries? CoolCare and other systems break the inquiries down by funding types. So, and therefore you might be looking at, so, well, our turnaround time for a local authority is X, but our private is Y. Why is there such a big difference? Why is it that out of the 3 homes in my group, one home does better than the other? What are they doing differently? Let's find out. So having that data to hand is absolutely essential to kind of get into the bottom of that. All inquiries need to be logged onto the system, and therefore you're able to view that from anywhere. CoolCare is an online system. Most systems are online, so anybody could potentially access that data from wherever in the world they might be sitting. So it's not a case that you have to go to the home to look at the inquiry book or have somebody send you a spreadsheet. It's more that I can see at any point in time exactly how well inquiries are going on. And all inquiries logged in is actually a really interesting point. I mean, I've had conversations with people, actually an existing customer of CoolCare, and they said, is there a way that you can kind of get rid of inquiries that aren't real? And my next question was, well, what do you mean by not a real inquiry? And they said, oh, well, they're just asking for a brochure. So if somebody's rang up and asked for a brochure, it's not a real proper inquiry. And I remember saying, well, if it's not a proper inquiry, what would you call it? I mean, are people just ringing up and asking for brochures because they want to? Seems weird. So yeah, let's kind of make sure that every inquiry is being captured. And in further questions with that individual, they were saying, well, my conversion rate's like 95%. if I don't count people that just make general inquiries. I said, well, what if you include the inquiries? Well, it's really ruining my stats and probably like 10%, which is the true figure, that the person converts 95% of the people that really go through the process to come to the home, or is it actually you're spending money to acquire these leads, but you're not really doing anything with them. So yeah, everything needs to go into the system. And then the idea is having a good CRM system kind of has its own little blueprint of a way you deal with your inquiries. Clearly see where everything's up to. Cool Care uses milestones, so it's very, very clear. I'm here. I'm at this point. This is what we need to do next. The person needs to come for a visit. When are they coming? Let's follow up. They missed that appointment. When will they come next? Let's kind of move that through. And it also means that any new team members joining your group, they've got a kind of a nice template of how to work. I don't have to think too hard about sort of what to do next, because the system kind of literally prompts me. So yeah, so looking at the sort of stages, yeah, visibility of all new inquiries is essential. That doesn't matter if you're opening a new home or your business is approaching maturity, it's the same. Inquiry ownership, so you know exactly who's doing what when, so things don't slip through the cracks. And then a smooth admission process ensures that residents are welcomed into the home. So you're very much aimed towards admission. And that's kind of where you're kind of looking to get to. So inquiry management, is ultimately entirely controllable and allows you to drive business and allows you to drive business growth. It's not something that's some sort of dark art. It's very much something that's completely under control. So Debbie is here. So I'm just going to go back, he says, to Debbie's slides. So Debbie, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
You can. Sorry about whatever happened.
Turn
Here now.
off.
Yeah, I carried on without you, but I basically just went onto my slide instead of your slide. So
No worries.
yeah, so over to you really. So sort of lead generation. I've already done the, what do you do when you've got the lead? But yeah, tell me a bit about what you think about lead generation.
Okay, so I think it's a really interesting area, and one that a lot of providers we speak to haven't quite brought together all of the different factors. And I think when you're talking about lead generation, it's one thing getting a lead in. It's an entirely different thing with what you do with that lead, which we'll come on to in a minute, but primarily what that lead has cost you to bring in. So how many providers are really nailing the cost per lead and the value of the different leads that are coming in? And I think that's a really interesting point. So as an example, if you have a lead coming in via your website, then fantastic. That is somebody who has inquired via your website. They know they're looking for a care home, but do you have a care home in the location they're looking in? Does the care home offer the care that they're looking for? And is the budget within their budget requirements? So whilst it's a lead, does it have the same value as, say, a lead we would send in that is pre-qualified on location, type of care, budget, and is home specific? So I just think, I'm just using those as two examples of how important it is to understand the value of the lead that's coming in versus how much you're actually paying for that. I mean, and I don't need to tell anybody, I'm sure, on this call how much Google costs to get some lead in and pay-per-click. I mean, it's horrendous. So that would be my starting point, Ian, is do you know your cost per lead? I'd be really interested, actually, if anybody, how many people on this call did know that, because that's something to really nail down.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting. I mean, it's a difficult thing. When I ask people about those sorts of questions, I don't normally get answers from them. We can get a real gamut of customers. We've got got around about 11% of the UK market, and it can be quite a different sort of kettle of fish from one company to another. Some companies employ centralized sort of I suppose sales teams or sales and marketing teams, and they kind of distribute the leads to their their homes, and they really do know what's going on. And then often this is actually been dealt with by the home manager. It's the home manager's the front point of contact, and the owners kind of leave the managers up to it, and they have their own ways of working. And yeah, probably the cost of leads doesn't really sort of feature on their radar. I
It's the only
noticed
way to assess, though, Ian, sorry to leap in there,
no,
but it's
no.
the only way to assess whether or not that traffic that's incoming, how valuable it is to you. If you don't know what your cost per lead is, then you know, you could be spending money in all the wrong places. And let's face it, none of us have got money to throw away.
Well, I mean that's pretty much in line with your sort of point number one. Obviously you're an online platform, and you've mentioned to me that there seems to be somewhat of a generational shift in which the people searching now are sort of in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're far more tech savvy. So when you have a lot of choices, because how would I find anything if I'm looking for it? I'm going to Google it, aren't I? I'm going to Google it. I'm gonna search around online first. Really, that's how we do it. But I think interestingly that like, yes, let's accept the fact that online is here, and it's not going away, and it's now dominating a difference. And I remember you said there's been a bit of a shift over pandemic, sort of before and after. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think COVID, oh God, it had a large part to play in a lot of things, didn't it? But I think the way people in particular looked for care homes has massively been shaped as a result of COVID. And then when you add on top of that self-funding families looking for a care home post-COVID, a fundamental difference. So pre-COVID, what did people do? They would ask a neighbour, they'd have a chat with a friend, and then they'd drive round and have a look at a few care homes and make their decision that way. Post-COVID, everything has changed. People for 2 years couldn't just walk in unannounced to a care home, and as a result, the care homes responded very quickly. I'll give you an example. 6 weeks after lockdown, when COVID first started, a large care provider that we were working with switched their marketing budget from 80% offline to 80% online marketing, because they recognized, and most providers have now, but they recognized very quickly that people were going to have to shift to online research to find the care they were looking for. We now estimate that 95% of the decision-making process for a self-funding family looking for a care home takes place online. And one of the ways we know that is because the searches that they're doing are happening, well, apart from the fact we can track all of the activity on the website, but a lot of the searches they're doing are happening outside office hours. So after 6 o'clock at night, before 8 o'clock in the morning. So 40% of our inquiries are generated overnight. And that's when do you do your Googling when you're working all day?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? And I guess that person's probably sitting on their phone. So I guess you're
exactly right.
It's got to be mobile. Gone are the days that you've got like a cream PC in the corner of your living room. We just don't do that anymore. It's on your phone. So and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, 95% of the decisions made online. So your second point here is about sort of differentiating and standing out. I mean, what's your sort of? I know that you use something called live ratings, and you've got very detailed listings. It's far more detailed than I think any other provider that I'm aware of. So to kind of tell us a little bit about kind of how is it that somebody can go about standing out online? I mean, even on their own website. I mean, what kind of sort of things do they have to do to be different? Because 95% of the decisions made before they visit the home.
Exactly.
You've got to do everything. You've got to throw everything out
there. COVID has really changed everything. I don't need to tell social care, do I? But it's really accelerated this online movement and access to information. One of the things that we used to say during COVID was open your online windows and doors. At a time when you couldn't open your door because of COVID, it was literally locked. Open your online windows and doors. And we have really promoted that across the sector. So initially, what was the information that was generally available? on a website about a care provider. It was registered care. It was maybe a few pictures of staff, maybe a picture of a room, picture of the lounge, the garden, the outside of the building. If you are trying to attract self-funding families to your care home, differentiate yourself from your competitors locally, you need to do an awful lot more than that. And that is how we have tried to support providers to do that. So as an example, we have got things like, and this has proved really interesting over COVID, we've got things like a live Facebook feed that is visible when somebody opens up the tab on your profile. It's not a link to Facebook, it's the pictures from Facebook, and you can keep scrolling through. You can see what that care home has been doing for weeks and weeks and weeks, and just keep on going back. And it is the most incredible window into what a care home is doing. If anybody on this call does not have a Facebook feed promoting what they're doing and showcasing what they're doing, I would really urge you to do that. So that's one example. Another thing that we've done that launched about, gosh, I think it was about 8 months ago now, was our choice dining badge. And this is because we all know how important food is in a care home. It's one of the significant factors when somebody is choosing, and it's certainly a significant factor when somebody's living in the home. So we worked with Unilever and Myco, and we started to pull in information from the care providers and work out what a brilliant dining experience could be, and to demonstrate that to potential clients. Now, I would clarify here, when I'm talking about brilliant dining experience, I'm not talking about fine dining, because brilliant dining experience for my mum versus your mum might be pub grub versus, I don't know, the Ritz. It's the right food for your relative. And that's what we've promoted through choice dining. But it just keeps on going, this level of information that families want. And what we do is about every 6 months, we do a survey and we say, what would influence you the most when you're looking for a care home? And we're doing this survey to people who are actively looking for a care home. And we act on the majority responses. So as an example, we did one, it really took us by surprise, actually. We did one 12 months ago for green credentials. And we gave that as an option for families to choose. And
that's interesting. It's not something I'd think of, but I definitely know that that's something that the wider group in L&T think of. They're got fantastic green credentials for their care homes, but so you're actually seeing that as a sort of a choice that people are making.
Yes, they are. But at the time, 12 months ago, you couldn't search for a care home based on their green credentials, because none of the care homes actually promoted it. So about 3 months ago, we launched Go Green, having worked with industry experts to identify what green credentials would look like without being greenwashing, and whilst recognizing that the majority of care providers would need to retrofit. So we've just worked together on a roadmap on how you can promote your green credentials to prospective clients. And that's what this is all about. Information to attract prospective clients.
Yeah, and I think, that's basically, you've almost completely done all of the third point there, which is make it easy to shortlist you, because it is a shortlisting process, isn't it? So it's a case that sort of people are making decisions. And yeah, I noticed that you've kind of got weekly pricing on your website, which is often not seen on care homes' own sites. That's very interesting. Whether or not people use care planning software, CQC ratings, yeah, that's almost a given, I think, with any care. And then your sort of your criterias. But the pet policy I found quite interesting, because I've never seen that mentioned before on other websites. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So can I just go back to the pricing thing first?
Yeah.
Because the CMA, Competition and Markets Authority, says that care services should have prices on their website. But I think it's a recommendation rather than obligatory or law. But from our perspective, if you are a self-funding family and you are looking for a care home and it doesn't have prices on, then we get responses back from the family saying, well, we couldn't afford it. They didn't have the prices on. It was obviously too expensive for us. Or on the other side is, well, if they're not prepared to put the prices on, what are they hiding?
Yeah, trying to get you in and then I'll tell you how much it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
You're in a no-win situation. I would just be transparent, but that's my view. Obviously, it's up to the individual care provider. Now, reference the PEP policy. We included this because we've been working with self-funding families for a very long time, helping them find care. And the amount of times that we have been asked to find a care home that would take a cat or a dog. I think we also had a budgie on one occasion. It was really difficult to find. So it was one of the first things we included in Autumna when we started to develop our search filters. And we've got 240 search filters for care homes. So anything I've ever been asked to look for on behalf of a family, we have included in the development of Autumna. You know, I'm a dog person. If I had a dog at the point of going into a care home, you wouldn't get me in a care home unless they'd accept the dog as well. And I understand all of the limitations if you're running the care home, etc. But I'd find a care home that would take a dog. It'd be the first question I'd ask.
It's a factor, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
I mean, even I'm personally not looking at going into a care home, hopefully anytime soon. But it is a factor for a
I'm
holiday.
older than you, Ian.
I thought that was just a grey wash, just to make you look distinguished. But I mean, it is a criteria. But, if you're a dog person, you've got animals.
Equally, though, Ian, what's interesting. What's also interesting is that we get some people who say, I don't want a care home that has a cat or a dog.
Fair enough. No, I think again, I suppose detail is key here, because you're almost ensuring that people are self-qualifying themselves out. So if you've got your average, if you've got your weekly fee up is 1,500 and that's too much, they'll qualify themselves out. They won't bother contacting the care home at all. We're not going to waste that time on somebody who would never afford the home. But equally, if it's a dog or any other criteria, I think that's an interesting approach, and it's often different. I mean, I meet people at care shows and on our sort of our stands that we have at the care show in London and in Birmingham, and we talk to people about inquiries, and they say very interesting things. It's usually a manager or an owner, and the manager might say something like, "Oh yes, we don't need to manage inquiries. It's word of mouth. People come to us through word of mouth, or they see the building and they come to us." And then you sort of say, "Oh, that's fantastic. So you don't use any kind of inquiry management system?" No, we don't need to. So what's your occupancy at the moment? Oh, it's around 50%. Why do you ask? I'm like, right. Do you think perhaps anything, the fact I don't need to advertise because it's word of mouth and I don't need to use a CRM, are they connected? No. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's interesting that sort of embracing this can really make a big difference to kind of like the quality of the inquiries coming through, rather than everybody comes to you and then you'll sort them out yourself. I've got a question for you. I know you've got live ratings, and I know where they come from. But would you like to sort of tell everybody a little bit about that? Because I think that's a very interesting initiative that's actually incredibly useful for search engine optimization as much as anything, because live ratings are a really great way to cut through the marketing blurb of what you say about your home to what people who actually use your home, work and live in that home, have to say about a home. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So we started working with person-centered software and Mediabase some time ago, actually now, because they have a digital sign-in, sign-out book. And we realized that when people were signing out, that was an ideal opportunity to collect a rating on the care home. Now, obviously, there's carehome.co.uk reviews. I'm actually the founder of those reviews, so I know them quite well. But I'm very aware, as providers are, that it's a really resource-heavy way of collecting reviews. And I think there is an opportunity to digitize this now. And I think we need to be able to digitize as much as we can, because resource is so precious. So we've worked with PCS and Mediabase, and we have arranged some questions when people sign out of the care home. They're given the opportunity to rate the care home. and then they're given the opportunity to score out of 5, 6 or 7 questions. And that then feeds directly through to a profile on Autumna. So it's live within a few minutes. It's already been verified because they've just signed out of the care home, so we know they've been in the care home. But where I think it is really interesting, we've been trialing this with about 100 care homes over the last few months. Where it's really interesting is the volume of ratings this is generating. So spoke to a care provider yesterday, and they said on average they get maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 reviews a month. This is on average generating 50 to 80 reviews a month. That is a massive increase.
A hell of a difference.
And the way on Autumna, the way we've presented this is these are the reviews from the last 30 days. And you can, I know, it's just so powerful because it's live and it's real. And you can see the last review was submitted at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I mean, that is really powerful stuff. And I think, and I don't know very much about the digital sign-in, sign-out book, so I apologise if I've got anything wrong on this, but one of the providers said to me the other day what they love about it is if somebody scores them a rubbish rating for food for that day, it flags up to the manager, and the manager can go, what happened with lunch today? And they can fix it for the next day.
Absolutely.
So,
so that we call it digital reception, and Cool Care sells the same product, and it can be connected to person-centered software as well. So it was first sold via PCS, but Cool Care also sells the same product. So linking to Autumna is one functionality. The digital sign-in also links to the person-centered software's care records. So when somebody clocks in to say, I'm visiting, my father, it updates a record as to how long father visited for, and then when they left, it says how long they were there for. Father, when they're leaving, there's live ratings that goes to Autumna, but there's also any other kind of question you might want to ask. So you can kind of get other types of feedback with that as well. And we certainly see, speaking with customers who've got PCS, Cool Care, and digital reception, they describe it as a turbocharging their feedback. And with the new CQC single framework of a single assessment framework, experiential feedback is rated exceptionally high. So having this feedback from actual users of the service saying, this is what I think, warts and all, and then the manager managing said problems or issues or whatever they might have, or positives, and then share the positives with the team, and then share in your example the negatives with the chef. It's just exactly what the CQC needs. It's his person-centered care, and it's a real big thing. So that's all through people just kind of like signing in and then signing out and leaving some feedback. So that's really helpful. Great. So, I mean, if you're okay with moving on, I do have a couple of other questions, but I'll sort of move on just for now. So we've kind of covered off pretty much everything on that sort of slide. We've got kind of an overview of kind of just process in relation to lead generation and management of the leads that are coming through. So it's a simple kind of feedback loop, nothing particularly clever, but I think it's something that done correctly and done well really does make a difference to the outcomes of your inquiries. So lead generation, making sure that you're both getting the quality and quantity that you need. There's no point having one without the other. And I think we all recognize that there is going to be a certain level of conversion rate. So if you want to have, potentially, let's say, 2 new residents a month and your conversion rate is 25%, then you need to have at least 8 or more inquiries per month to get said outcome. But perhaps if you get better quality leads, you don't need to have quite a sort of a different sort of feedback level. Sorry, not feedback, conversion level. So better leads, better qualified, you convert higher, and that's really the idea. And it kind of comes back to your cost of the actual lead. Is it worth spending money to get leads that don't go anywhere, or is it better to spend more money maybe on less leads, but they're more effective? Yeah, then it's that quality call. So it is a care call, making sure that you're delivering a good question, you're having robust follow-ups, and you're capturing information, ideally into a system of some description, to make sure that should you get delayed or not work one day, everybody's got access to your notes. You can see what happened. You can see where they're up to. You can see what the next steps are, and then move forwards. It's very much an embedded approach in management to a managerial oversight of the inquiry area, and it's fascinating because I speak with senior C-suite individuals in groups. The inquiry management's completely at the within the home to deal with. They don't get involved. The marketing spend is from group, but the home management of inquiries is at home level, and nobody's really checking whether or not things are going well or not. So yeah, it's got to be sort of part and parcel of, like, if you're going to be doing this, it's ensuring you're looking at your funding types, your conversion rates, and then potential discharges. Then using your data, as with any kind of feedback loop, you are going to say, right, am I spending the right amount of money in the right places on my marketing? Am I focused on quality, or is it just numbers? It's quality versus quantity. No, it's actually both. And then, do I revisit my lead generation sources and say, advertising in the paper is not doing me much. My Google ads, my Google spend, my pay-per-click, it's not getting me what I want. It's getting me the wrong kinds of inquiries. Actually, I'd be better off with less inquiries, but better quality. Yeah, so that's kind of that, really. So it's kind of closing remarks on our little webinar, and then time for Q&A. We believe that it's a positive market outlook. That for businesses that are looking to scale, for businesses that are looking to improve on their overall occupancy and inquiry management, there are plenty of opportunity out there. As per Debbie's sort of insight, it's not so simple to rest on your laurels. You have to change it up. I think it's fascinating that 95% of the decisions are made online, and that you had a provider that switched from 20% online marketing to 80% online marketing. That is the way forwards. And it seems to me that detail and self-qualification is key. We know that Cool Care customers on average, their average weekly fees is 1,142. So we know that Cool Care customers kind of tend to get above sort of national average of fees. Is that because they use a CRM system, or is it because they're the kind of people that know you need to use a CRM system? Is it Cool Care that makes a difference, or is it the mindset? Either way, they're using us to do that. They've got 82% and above average occupancy, and 54% of our customers are self-funders. So we definitely know that that's an important thing. That's, by the way, it's 100% self-funding as opposed to just sort of top-ups. We know that management controls and sort of strong systems are really important. Digital transformation on lead generation, on CRM capture, and everything else is just part of where we are now. So I suppose it's open to everybody else if there's any questions, but I did have two questions for Debbie just before we go to that. The first one is, I noticed on your website and also just on general Google searches that the sort of logos, brands, that we know in care, there are some big names. Do you find that the customer, the inquirer, care about the big names? Is that important to them?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I don't think it is. I don't think a family looking for care who is likely to only ever look for one care home in their life, maybe two, would recognise very many brands at all, if any at all. So I don't think you can rely on your brand. I think you're going to be relying on your online presence first and foremost, that's for sure, but also how you then manage a lead that comes into you, and how reassuring and comforting and helpful you are when that lead comes in.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because you don't get the surety of the brand. I mean, if you look at purchasing any other things, brand names are well known, whereas in care, they're well known to us, I suppose, but not necessarily to the person that's now searching for the first time in their life for care. Which I suppose means the care call, you might have a better website, you might have a better online presence, you might have a marketing team, so it could make a difference if you're a larger brand just by default, but you can't rest on the laurels of your brand, and that means if you're big, the care call is just as important as if you're small.
Absolutely.
It's all hinging on that care call there and then, I guess. That's interesting. And then I suppose I've got a question, just a general thing is how should a provider handle a self-funding inquiry? I mean, what would be your top tips?
Well, my top tips are very carefully you handle a self-funding client. I just cannot emphasize enough how important it is that when somebody makes an inquiry, your response to them, whether it's email or telephone, or whether they walk in through the front door, is that you are welcoming, supportive, and kind and helpful. And I know they are really obvious things to say, but some of the emails that I get copied into from providers are anything but that, you know, and it comes across as way too brusque, way too you know, call me this afternoon, I'm free between 2 and 3. Really? You know, this is my mum you're talking about, and they're not, families aren't going to respond and don't respond to responses like that. I really think a sort of like a hug is what is needed. You've just got to be really careful with these clients. You may or you may not be able to support that family, but they will always remember you if you were kind and helpful and would potentially recommend you to somebody, even if you can't help them.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's such a valuable call. I mean, you sort of mentioned about kind of the cost per lead, and we talk in Cool Care about kind of time to conversion of a lead, and we know from Cool Care sort of metadata, you know, like the wider data in Cool Care, that our customers are under 20 days for an inquiry of private funding. I suppose the argument would be is that the sooner that resident makes a decision and can come to the home, being business head here for a second, literally the more money you're going to make. If you can get that resident in 2 weeks earlier, then that's 2 weeks more funding. Do you sort of have those kind of conversations with people? Sort of say, that kind of comes up. The speed is needed.
Yeah, it's one of the things we ask actually. So when somebody is filling in one of our forms and we're helping them to identify appropriate care providers, one of the things we ask them is, how quickly are you looking for this service? A lot of people, I would say the average is probably 2 to 4 weeks, but that's more to get logistics in place. And also if you've got a hospital discharge, it can take that length of time. Some people are looking ASAP. We pass that on to the provider so they know how quickly somebody is looking as well. But there's often very many external factors that might influence speed. But speed of response by the provider to the family generally is a good one to start with if you get a quick response.
Yeah,
back to the family.
Well, yeah, I think I mean that's kind of like the same with a lot. I mean, so the kind of same. Inquiries are not sales. They are sales. They're not sales. It's a very important call, but the speed and rapidity of responses. You don't want to be the one that's sort of dragging your heels, because the other your competition out there may well be, moving quicker and being more responsive, and that does make a difference. That's part of the decision-making process for anybody getting any service. There's no real difference. Is there any questions from the sort of assembled audience? I got a question come through from Chip at Aurum Care. So does the digital sign-in link with other care planning software such as Nourish? So the answer to that was, I just popped that up there, was the digital reception that Cool Care sells is fundamentally the same as the one that's sold by PCS. And at the current present time, it only links to person-centered software. So it only updates person-centered software. Also, from a kind of live ratings perspective, it only links to Autumna at this current point in time. There are no specific development milestones to change that at the moment, because nobody else has invented the concept of live ratings. That's a Debbie Harris special. So there's kind of no link there, and also there's no current view to link digital reception to any other care planning software. That can change, but that's not the situation at the moment. Any other questions? So if there isn't, I've got kind of a couple of quick fire kind of ones, just to sort of, I suppose the question I've got for Debbie, is there any do's and don'ts that you would sort of shout out about kind of when dealing with brand new leads, new inquiries, anything that you kind of like, definite do's, definite don'ts?
Okay, so there's a couple of bugbears that I can give you that.
Yeah, go for it.
So I mean, when an inquiry comes in, if it's coming in over the phone, obviously answer the phone. You'd be surprised how many phone calls aren't answered. But if you've got an email inquiry, make sure you get back in that sort of hug-like way to the person who is inquiring via email. Just on a few pointers on what your online profile looks like. We sent a newsletter around about this a couple of months ago, actually, because it really makes such a big difference. If you have a picture of the outside of your home, make it so that the picture looks really nice and welcoming. Blue sky, maybe a bit of sunshine, no bins out the front, no cars parked everywhere, no rubbish. You know, make the picture look nice. It's all about curb appeal. I mean, it's a really obvious thing, but I can tell you there's a few providers that haven't quite got that right yet. And make your photos inside the home look nice and welcoming. Stage them a little bit if you need to, but make them look nice. If people are looking online and making a decision online, this is your chance to shine and show what you're like. And this doesn't mean you need to have a hotel style care home, because if it was my mum needing a care home, she would not want a hotel style care home. She would want something that was small and cozy and older. So I'm not differentiating here between old care homes and new care homes. It's horses for courses, and we get inquiries that suit both.
That's a really good. That's it. No, that's a really. It's. I suppose it's the age old shop front.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of. You know, why is it that any kind of anybody selling anything kind of likes to sort of have shiny pictures, etc. I think you can go too far. You don't necessarily want like full on Instagram filters and styling for photographs. You want them to look real. But I think that's something you mentioned earlier is a Facebook feed. I've noticed that. I think we do a bit of research on our customers when they come to us, and you can kind of see, you get a bit of a feel for what's going on in the care home. So yeah, a mix of that, I suppose. You know, decent photographs, decent kind of things. A good telephone manner when you're answering the phone. I think I've got a couple of do's and don'ts. I think do's, you definitely need to follow up on inquiries. You ideally need to try to pre-filter via your own website or other websites so that you aren't getting inquiries for things that are not suitable. You're not getting a dementia inquiry when you don't offer dementia care. And then you want to capture as much information as possible. Collaborate with your team members as much as possible so that the inquiry is being dealt with in a timely manner. So it's not like 9 to 5. They rang in on Friday afternoon. I'll ring them back Monday. No, somebody's working on Saturday. They could ring them. Why not? You know, don't just kind of say, no, I don't do that, or we don't do that, because over that weekend they've gone and inquired with 3 others and booked appointments, and you're kind of already out of the picture. I think definitely asking questions and take a genuine interest in finding the answers. So I have experienced it that it's kind of tick boxing. I've done some mystery shopping. You know, you can hear somebody who's filling out a form, doesn't feel conversational, felt quite robotic. I didn't fill me with confidence that the person would care if I was actually really a resident. I was mystery shopping, so fair enough. But if I was, it was just a bit too robotic. So I think yes, you want answers to questions, but you do have to have somewhat more of a conversation. I think it really is a care call. And then finally, for me, I think the don't sort of I don't know how to put it. Treat every inquiry equally. I mean, qualify them, but don't kind of just discount them because you don't like the sound of them, which is something some of our customers, well, not necessarily our customers, but people I've met have sort of said, yeah, well, just, people aren't really interested in coming into the care home. It's like, really? Why did they ring you in the first place if they're not asking? So I think, just make sure you put it on the system, log it on the system. If it doesn't go anywhere, fair enough, but that is part and parcel of the bigger picture. It's no reflection on you as an individual that it wasn't a conversion. It's more of a reflection on, are we advertising the home in the best way possible? Yeah, any other things to add? I mean, that's kind of it from us, really. It was a kind of, sorry about to everybody about the delay on getting Debbie on board, but if there are any other questions, feel free to contact us at Cool Care. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and then I can pass those on to Debbie, or you can contact Debbie through her own website if you want. And then also we will be sharing the slides post webinar. And the video as well. But if there's no further questions and nothing from Debbie, anything last?
No,
final words?
Thanks very much. Sorry nobody can see me, but nice to be on the call. Nice to talk to you, Ian.
No worries. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. And then I'm gonna sort of bring this webinar to a close somehow. I'm sure there's a way I can do that. I don't actually know how to do it. There we go. And then, yep. That's the end of the webinar. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.